Today we're talking about one of the most intriguing fishing outfits of the mid-20th century. Have you ever seen one of these? Have you ever used one? You're looking at a Hurd Super-Caster. So a Hurd's is a very interesting outfit. It's a combination of a fishing reel and rod with a walnut handle. And I'm going to talk about that in this episode of the Shop series. So welcome to the Shop, folks. This is a series where we just talk about things that I've collected over the years. Some of it not very valuable, but it's stuff that means something to me. And I'm not an expert on virtually anything, but I do know a little bit about some of the stuff that I've collected over the years because I've researched it because it interested me. And so I wanted to ask you, did you ever use a bait caster with a pistol grip? This is one of the most iconic outfits, actually, of the 1970s and 1980s. It is a Fenwick fiberglass rod with an Ambassador 5500C. If I can keep it out of the lights here, I'll show it to you. So there were some real advantages to these bait casters, to these pistol grips, and one of them was just what I'm doing right here. You could palm that reel and still hold it, and that, you talk about balance, that's a really balanced outfit. Now a lot of anglers might use a what were they, a Lew's speed stick. Remember Lew's? They made a reel and a Lew's speed stick, which was another good one. So any of the serious bass anglers of that day, late 1970s, early 1980s, this would have been an outfit they would have been proud to have. I often wonder if maybe these pistol grips might come back someday. There were some real advantages to it. Now, you had a little more sensitivity over some of the other rods of the day, but the biggest advantage was accuracy. So you probably see up here on my shelves, I've got these Rebel lures, and I told you about those before. There's a P70 Pop-R up there that would have been perfect for casting with this outfit right here. Because if there's a stump out there and there's a big old bass you thought might be around that stump, you could put it right on his head and maybe catch him because of the accuracy that came along with these pistol grips. But we're talking about Hurd's today. So the Hurd's company, Hurd Super-Caster. The Hurd's company started out in Detroit, Michigan, making locks and not clocks and watches, but mostly, clocks and locks, but mostly locks. And they were pretty famous for it. Let's go over here and sit down. So they made high-end locks. In fact, they made door locks for the Ford Motor Company. So any of those old Fords that had, once they started locking their doors on the cars, Hurd made them and invented the keys for them and everything. Well, World War II came around, and the Army and the Navy and all the branches of the military contracted with the Hurd's company to make locks. And Hurd's even made some top secret classified locks, so, where they could lock stuff up and keep the enemy out of it. Well, that's what Hurd's did. But after the war, the economy was booming. There were manufacturing jobs everywhere, and Hurd's decided to come out with some fishing reels. They'd experimented a little bit before the war, and then in 1946, they announced their first fishing reel, which was the Hurd's Super-Caster. And it wasn't cheap neither. It was an expensive reel. It cost $45. Now, I ran it out on my inflation calculator, and $45 in 1946 will be about the same as $750 today. So there are people who will spend $750 on a bait casting outfit right now in this day and age, but there's not a whole lot. But there was enough back during that time. Now, World War II, all the GIs were coming home. They'd been homesick. They were ready to go fishing. They had a little bit of money to spend, and the technology was evolving something crazy back then. For example, monofilament line was invented during World War II by the Navy, not for fishing, but we figured out real quick, that it worked real good for fishing. Now, also at this time, there was a hotbed of fishing lure and fishing equipment manufacturing in that part of Michigan. So Adrian, Michigan is where the company moved to in the 1930s, right before the war. Adrian is just south of Jackson. It's about 100 miles due east of WWII. WWII's where the Headden plant is. Just above WWII is Paw Paw, just south of South Bend, across the border, South Bend, Indiana. Go a little further south, you find the Creek Chub Company. There's lots of little, smaller companies around in that area making fishing stuff. Hurd wanted to get in on the action, and they did, and they made the Hurd Super-Caster, and it was extremely popular at the time. They sold well, even though they cost so much, because they were made well, and they were made, the technology that they put into making those locks, those highly classified locks and stuff, they put into making these outfits, and they worked really well. So let me show you a little bit something about them. I have to come back over here where I'm shutting the phone down. Uh-oh. I caught a lure. So this particular reel, first of all, it's got a level wind in the front. You'll notice this one still works. And if you find them these days, they probably still going to work because they were made that well. This is a spool tensioner. You could tighten or loosen the tension on the spool, make it a little easier to cast. You've got a heavy plug, you loosen it up, a lighter plug, you tighten the tension up a little bit. This is a clicker. And it had a drag, which is innovative at the time. Now this handle would come in and out, and this one stuck, but that's the way they just pulled in and out. There's a persistent rumor that I said handle, it's a rod. There's a persistent rumor that these rods were originally tank antennas. Well, most of the serious collectors who mess around with this stuff, especially these Hurd Super-Casters, they don't really believe that, because this is pretty precisionally fit in here, and there's different lengths of these rods. This one's 4.5 feet, but there's different lengths, and the diameters are about the same, so they don't necessarily believe that. But you know what? It's still interesting, and there's several reasons why it's interesting. One is because the Sherman tank, which is the most popular tank they made during World War II, guess where they were made? Right down the road in Detroit. Another interesting coincidence was that I told you about Headden over there in WWII. Well, so Headden suspended their fishing lure manufacturing. Well, they slowed it down a lot during World War II. And you know what one of the things was that they started making? Tank antennas. Now, I'm not saying the Hurd Super-Caster company got their antennas from Headden, but it sure would be an interesting coincidence, wouldn't it, if that happened? So anyway, if you find that one of these, buy it. You can find them on eBay, $150 or so for one that's been kind of beat up. Check the walnut handle really well. All these walnut handles were made individually by another company, a gun manufacturer, and they were made specifically for each individual outfit, and they've got numbers on the back of them that match the serial numbers of the rod and reel itself. So look that over. A better one's going to be $350, $400. They made a plastic handle too, and the plastic handle ones were cheaper at the time when they came out. Only cost I think $29 or something like that when they first came out, but they're worth more now. Because they were rarer, and rarity has a lot to do with it. They came in a plastic case sometimes, so that plastic case would shrink, and so a lot of times you won't find them with the case, but if you do find one with this plastic case, it might not fit in it because it shrank so bad. But keep it anyway, because those cases can be valuable and adds to the value of your outfit if you got the case for it as well. And so that the Hurd company, they lasted for about 10 years or something, and they went out of business. Well, they went back to making locks, and they were making automotive parts as well. Eventually moved to Greenville, Tennessee. So Greenville's the next town over from where I went to high school in Rogersville, and they were our arch rivals in sports too. What's interesting is that Adrian, Michigan is the next town over from where my wife grew up in Michigan. She's from that Jackson, Michigan area up there. So pretty good coincidence there. I thought that was funny. So, will pistol handles come back on rod and reels? One of the themes of this show is you don't know where we're going unless you know where we've been. So that's where we've been, and it might come back. There are some reasons to have pistol grips. So that's our show today. Thank you for tuning in. Next time we'll talk about some more fishing stuff, probably, or maybe we'll talk about something else. I don't know. But I appreciate you watching. If you hadn't subscribed yet, I hope you will. And your likes are appreciated, and your shares. And if you got any questions, hey, send them my way. If you got any old fishing equipment you want me to take a look at, I'm available to look at it. So send it my way. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I'll see you next time.